Hi, I'm here tonight to present to you a very important topic, a topic that affects everybody in all relationships that we have. It is called conflict resolution. To first understand what conflict resolution is very important to define what conflict is, and then understand what resolution is. So that, with that said, that's the first objective we have here tonight, is to define conflict and conflict resolution. Conflict is a disagreement that occurs between individuals or groups. It results from differences in desires and values, attitudes, needs, or expectations. Results in miscommunications or lack of communications. When conflict occurs, if you don't resolve it, it results in hard feelings, poor relationships, poor productivity. So to have good conflict resolution, one must have a conscious act of managing thoughts and feelings, paying attention to attitudes and actions, to actively pursue an agreement between the differing parties or the individuals and groups. Without managing that conflict, you cannot move forward, can't make good decisions, and the groups will not work together productively. Second objective here tonight in this presentation is to identify or be able to think about and understand what the different types of conflict are. And there have been 4 different types of conflict defined. The first type being interpersonal. Interpersonal conflict occurs within oneself. It might be a difference in the values, morals, ethics, occurs in ethical dilemmas. Interpersonal occurs between 2 groups or 2 individuals, and that comes from different needs, desires, values. The third type of conflict is intragroup, and that's when conflict occurs between the members of a group where they can't come to a consensus or agreement, or they have different goals within the group and are not actively going to working towards the same goals. The fourth type of conflict is intergroup conflict, and that occurs between different groups of people working for different things. It's similar to different groups of individuals lobbying for their own goals. They're the ones that fight back and forth, and if they can't come to a consensus, things don't get resolved. Our third objective here tonight then would be identifying behaviors that are beneficial and or detrimental to conflict resolution. Now, beneficial behaviors are to be able to respect and respond to the thoughts and emotions and desires of other parties. For a person to actually be able to recognize a conflict, see that another person may have any other needs, desires, and at least make room and have some consideration for the other party's position in the conflict, helps to begin the conflict resolution process. Parties must also be able to forgive and forget differences and have the ability to seek compromise and forego punishing others when they don't get what they want. Resolution is a method that supports all parties within a conflict, and it's very important to have a belief that that is of the utmost, that everybody is supported and everybody has a stake in the process of conflict resolution. Detrimental behaviors in conflict resolution include the inability to recognize and respond to thoughts, emotions, and desires of other people. Explosive, angry, hurtful behavior or spiteful interactions and responses, withdrawal of attention or withdrawal of interaction that results in feelings of rejection, shame, or fear are also very detrimental to any kind of resolution process or agreement that could occur between individuals. So now that we understand our objectives here tonight in the presentation, we'll look a little bit closer at what conflict is and what conflict resolution is. As I stated before, conflict resolution is a conscious act of working to identify one's own thoughts and emotions, desires, and needs in order to manage behaviors that may impede the ability to respond to other people. It's basically called an emotional intelligence, where you become aware of your own thoughts and feelings, your own values, morals, your own desires, and what your own goals are, so that you know your own limits and you have room to consider another person's limits, thoughts, goals, and values. making sure that you have respect for them and allow them also to speak helps that process of conflict resolution. Conflict resolution is very important when it comes to nursing and healthcare. Conflict can arise in many different areas within healthcare. It can happen between physicians, it can happen between nurses, it can happen between physicians and nurses. It also happens between physicians, nurses, and families. It's important to be able to recognize when a conflict is occurring, be open and actively listening when conflict occurs, and allow people to be able to state their own needs so that you can actually address them and understand them. Sometimes acknowledging what another person has to say, giving them room to vent or at least express themselves, allows you to be able to start actively talking about something and coming to a consensus on and resolving whatever conflict or issue is impeding the progress of care or the day-to-day operations. There are the different levels of conflict within nursing, being it physician, nurse, staff, and patients, require different skill levels when it comes down to resolving conflict, and being intelligent about it and being able to educate yourself and know your own limits will help you to resolve those conflicts more effectively. Conflict can affect healthcare administration as well as between the staff. Conflict that occurs in the administration affects the staff as well. So as things change within a hospital, the policies change, the expectations change, the hierarchy changes in the administration. It does affect the stress levels of the staff that work in there, or the physicians that work there, or the patients that come into such facilities. There was a study that was done and published in the American Journal of Nursing that actually looked at nurses' behaviors and how they resolve conflict. That the study aimed to look at how they resolve the conflict so that they could determine best ways to train nurses and analyze their behaviors so that effective conflict management and resolution could be taught to the new people coming in and reduce the amount of conflict that occurred within the nursing units. The study concluded by finding that nurses perceived conflict resolution is either positive or negative, and that the positive determination was based upon the outcomes of the conflict, whether it was for the benefits of the patient. That was determined a positive outcome. Negative outcomes were determined when things didn't come out positively in the patient's best interest. As stated before, as we discussed conflict resolution, it is very important to have good skills, and emotional intelligence will help anyone, especially nursing, to resolve conflicts of a variety of nature. It is inevitable that we have conflict. Anytime you have interactions with people, you will have an interpersonal, intrapersonal, intergroup, or intergroup conflict. That is the nature of being a human being. Knowing how to recognize a conflict and knowing how to resolve them effectively so that each group or each individual has a win-win situation will be imperative in the functioning of whether a group or an individual relationship. There are differing styles of conflict management and resolution. The most beneficial is going to be those that are negotiating, or those that can compromise so that each person or each group has a win-win. Those that are poor styles include avoiding, where you don't address the situation at all, or the style where one party loses in a power struggle. Those are not beneficial ways to resolve any kind of a conflict, but occasionally it happens that power struggle needs to occur and the strongest one wins, and that happens usually when the decision has to be made right away and there's not enough time to resolve through negotiating or compromise. As we discussed, and as you can see, it is important that all individuals learn to resolve conflict so that productivity is increased, you eliminate poor feelings, poor interactions. You have better communication. You can have good interactions with each other, and everybody leaves with good feelings at the end of the day. In conclusion, it's fair enough to say that you're going to have conflict every day, and learning how to manage that, learning how to identify it, resolve it effectively, can decrease the dissatisfaction you have in life and increase your overall satisfaction with your work, with your family, with the individuals and friends that you have. It is imperative that everybody learns how to do that, or learns how to manage conflict and resolve issues. Emotional intelligence is of utmost importance, because knowing yourself, knowing your values, knowing your goals, your own desires, will allow you to have room for another person's thoughts, feelings, and desires. You can think about them, you can accommodate them, and you can actually come to a conclusion by being open to the fact